Well, welcome back, everyone. I don't know about you, but this has been a jam packed week for me. At the start of this week, I got notice from my landlord that I'm going to have to find a new place to live. And it is such a tricky environment out there right now that trying to find a new rental, a new place to live is super expensive, not to mention time consuming. And there's so much disruption that goes with moving, right? So you got to pack everything up, you got to find a place. It's just, oh, what a hassle, you know? But I did this. I actually created this situation for myself. You see, I have been thinking and wanting to move. And I have been just contemplating that. I haven't been doing anything about it. Just every so often, I might go on realestate.com and just check out what's out there, right? But I had no idea that I was going to be put in this situation this quickly, right? So, kind of interesting how things work out. And it's so relevant to today's chapters and what we're going to go through. So, firstly, I want to say that if you've been following the series, thank you so much. Um, I know that I finished off last week with no indication for you in terms of what we would be covering this week. So, this week we are covering chapters 8 and 9. And during the week, I actually dived back into chapter 7, the chapter on gratitude, because there's just so much good stuff in there. And it was wonderful to just kind of get into that flow and be reminded of just how much greatness there is in that chapter. So, as I said, this week we're going to cover chapters 8 and 9. And it's just so fitting, that story I led with, in terms of how we go from here. All right. So, the first place I want to start is right at the beginning of chapters 8. And I want to read this because Wattles goes right into saying that you must form a clear and definitive was where I was going to go with that. Oh my gosh, let's start again. You must form a clear and definite mental picture of what you want. You cannot transmit an idea unless you have it for yourself. This is so good because often we sit down, we do goal setting, and we really, if we're honest, we really don't have a clear idea of what we want. We know the general direction that we want to move into, and we get a sense of what that feels like energetically. But in terms of the picture, it's really fuzzy. And because of the week that I've had some things that I'd like to share with you in this lesson. That if you find yourself in this experience where things are fuzzy and you don't necessarily have a clear mental picture of what you want, maybe some of the things that I share with you today are going to help you build that roadmap for yourself. He goes on to say that you must have it before you can give it. Now, I know that he's talking about goals here, but because of the week that I've had, because I've been revisiting this chapter on gratitude, it really made me think about how many times and how many situations in life that we encounter where we are urged to have it before we can give it. So you think about, love situations, you think about people who are single and how many times they get the advice that they've got to be able to love themselves before they can love somebody else, or that they must be so full and complete within themselves before they're going to find their life partner and be complete with somebody else. So this notion of that you have to have it before you can give it, there's a double entendre in there, because what I find is that if you have it before you can give it, then you already have it. Look, just bear with me here, okay? So let's have a think about this in terms of, I want to start with self love, because, everything that we're doing in life, and no matter what we're building out there in the world, it comes back to this place of how much love we have with ourselves. Now, don't get me wrong, there's lots of evidence for people out there who are rich and famous, and they've made it, and we're talking about, the science of getting rich. So I want to couch this in the conversation of abundance and wealth and financially security, like having that financial security for yourself. So if you have it before you can give it, you've got to be able to feel those things. You've got to be able to be those things. So, remember, we're going back to that conversation that Wattles is having about the difference between the truth and the appearance. So, you don't want to be looking at your bank account, which is the appearance, and relating to that like it's the truth, because we know this far into the mini series that that's not the case at all, right? So the truth is you have this infinite supply. It is infinite. That is the truth. And so if you are tapping into the thoughts and the feelings and the physicality that you have this abundance, that you have this infinite supply, then you're going to have it before you can give it, right? So you're going to have it before you are able to then start to spend that money on something else. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But, I know that you're feeling me. I know that this is making sense for you. I want you to keep cogitating through the week on this one. You must have it before you can give it. And yourself, if you've ever experienced forgiving someone or loving someone, in spite of however they've been towards you, that eventually they come around, that eventually something in your karma acknowledges, and I don't want to say rewards, but comes back to you in that way that fulfills you in the way that you're wanting, right? And sometimes it's not even from that person, but it's the acknowledgement that that's coming back, right? So that's you impressing upon the formless substance this desire to not have this in your energy, right? So you're moving towards forgiveness and you're moving towards love. All right. So you must have it before you can give it. And many people fail to impress thinking substance because they have themselves only a vague and misty concept of the things they want to do, to have, or to become. So that's really, critical to the study that we're doing here. It's critical to the essence of this book and what this book is about. Is it about you getting that vision so crystal clear? And look, we are going through this book for the first time. And every time you go through this book, this is going to be like building a muscle and getting stronger and being able to make that vision more clear. He says, it is not enough that you should have a general desire for wealth to do good with. Everybody has that desire. It is not enough that you should have a wish to things, live more, etc. Because everybody has those desires also. He wants you to know that if you were going to send a wireless message to a friend, you would not send the letters of the alphabet in their order and let him construct the message for himself, nor would you take those words at random from the dictionary. You would actually send a coherent sentence, one which meant something. Imagine that. So when you try to impress your wants upon substance, you've got to remember that it must be done by a coherent statement. You must know what you want and be definite. And that part is critical, because how many times have you said, oh, yeah, I want this, and then you come up with all the reasons why you can't have it? You can't do that anymore. You got to stop that kind of behavior. So you got to know what you want and you've got to be definite. He goes on to say, nor would you take words at random from the dictionary. You would send a coherent sentence, one which meant something. Sorry, it's me repeating. So when you try to impress your wants upon substance, remember that it must be done by a coherent statement. You must know what you want and be definite. All right. So a little bit of repetition there. Maybe that's meant for you. Maybe that's meant to really sink in for you this week. I've got something to say about this. I'm just referring to my notes. All right. So, in my experience, sorry, guys, I'm just gathering my thoughts here about what exactly I want to say about this. And it goes like this. Early on in my coaching career, I would ask people this question. I would say, what do you want? Now, I was pretty inexperienced back then, still getting my coaching hours under my belt. And what I found is that it became a question I really hated asking people. You know why? Because 99% of the time when you ask people what they want, they can't tell you. And then what I also discovered is that when you ask people what they want, 99% of the time, they're going to give you a list of all the things that they don't want. It's interesting, isn't it? So, what do you think people are getting out there if they don't know what they want or they're focused on all the things that they don't want? It's a no brainer, right? He goes on to say, behind your clear vision, so really, really hones that in, must be the purpose to realize it, to bring it out in tangible expression. All right. So it's got to be something you can touch, taste, feel. It comes out into the physical form, essentially, is what he's saying. So that clear vision, if you look at the Bible, and I'm starting to feel like a preacher here today, but if we look at the Bible, it's like in the beginning there was the word. Well, actually, before the word, there was the thought. And then the word got spoken. And then it became in the physical. And so, you know, through this journey, I've talked to you about being congruent, and that congruence speeds things up. The more congruent you can be between your heart, your mind, your body, your soul, the quicker things will manifest. Now, I want you to sit with that, because that leads to you being able to say chair, and then chair just materializing. A bit like me this week with knowing that I want to move, and wow, that move just happened so quick and it's there. Right. This power is very powerful, but most people don't have control of their mental abilities and their mindset. And they're wavering, so they're letting that fear and that doubt get in, and it just pulls them off track, pulls them off track, pulls them off track. And they don't even know that that's what's going on. He goes on to say that behind this purpose must be an invincible and unwavering faith that the thing is already yours. So what you want is already yours. Before you have asked, it is given, right? And that it is at hand, and that you only have to take possession of it. So here is the magic in this. Here is the magic, is that so often we ask for things, and there is a road that exists between you and that thing that you want. And then you go and put a roadblock sign up, and it cannot get to you. How many times do you do that? So I want you to imagine right now that there is you in the middle of the desert, and I want you to see how many roads from you are taking you out of that desert. Because some of you, there's going to be no road in sight. You have put up so many roadblocks over so many years that that road has become, what do they call it? It's like the road's just disappeared. I can't find the word right now. Like it's disintegrated, right? So it's gone, and you're in the middle of the desert, and there's no one that can get to you. Okay, so what do you want, and how are you going to start to build a road for you to get there? Now, understand this, that road is about you taking action. It's about, and that action that, I was thinking about this today. Like there's so many times where I thought that action meant labor, effort, time, risk, the unknown as to whether this was going to produce anything in return. But sometimes the action can be the most mundane and simple thing, like lifting up that roadblock and just putting it to the side and dismantling it to allow what is coming to you to actually get to you. Man, I feel like such a preacher today, but maybe this is my calling, guys. I don't really know, but I feel very passionate about this. And whoever you are that happens to be listening, I hope that I am speaking directly into your heart. And I hope that I am speaking in a way that moves you the way that it is moving me right now. All right, so he goes on to say, Wallace, like he was onto something here. I'm telling you that your part is to intelligently formulate your desire for the things which make for a larger life. Right? He's wanting you to be more, to have more, to do more, but not just Wattles. He is talking about this intelligent substance, whether we call it God, the universe, whatever. There is this compulsion, this propelling towards more life, more of you, this expansion, a larger life. And he's saying that, and to get these desires arranged into a coherent, there's that word, coherent, congruent whole. Okay, so how are we going to do that? We're going to explore that. And then to impress this whole desire upon the formless substance, which has the power and the will to bring you what you want. This is so powerful, so powerful. So, what I'm going to invite you to do in this process, I'm actually taking you through a bit of a process today and to share with you something that you can do to start to get this collective whole in mind and front of mind. And I'm doing this and I'm speaking to you in particular if you have come from a place where it has been quite difficult to put your dreams and your goals down because you haven't always believed in yourself. You've lacked confidence. You felt like something was holding you back. You've hit a life hurdle or some kind of significant life change that has thrown you for a six. And even though it may have happened 1, 2, 5, 10 years ago, you are still feeling the impact of that on your life and in your heart and in your day to day. So if that is you, just know that you are in my heart as I'm speaking and sharing this with you today. And that it is my wish for you, my goal, my intention for you that something shifts and something moves so that you're able to get into the flow and into the action that you need to have this life that you deserve. And I want you to know that you do deserve this life that you want, that you, is the biggest expansion of who you are. You deserve that. So let's have another read before I move on to the next part. Your part in this whole thing, your part is to intelligently formulate your desire for the things which make for a larger life and to get these desires arranged into a coherent whole, and then to impress this whole desire upon the formless substance, which has the power and the will to bring you what you want. So, in my work with people, and to get this to happen, I get them to do things like draw or cut and paste or create posters, both online or offline, vision boards. And I want you to, when you do this exercise, however you choose to do it, and in whatever medium you choose to do it, that you lay out all the possibilities and then you tune in to the possibilities that feel true to what you want and what your heart desires. And then you can start to just throw out the rest, because we want to start with you want everything and then put everything down. Don't allow there to be any limits in your thinking. So forget about what experience you have, what gender you are, how much money you do or don't have. Forget about all of that stuff. Just start with a very clean slate of everything that you want and just put it down. Now, again, depending on where you are in your life, doing this exercise, just doing this exercise alone can be quite challenging, especially if you're dealing with situations that are causing a conflict in your emotions. And what I mean by that is that, like there's this, you're going to notice this incongruence, like the lack of congruence in between, let's say, your mind and your heart, or your heart and your soul, what your soul is telling you to do. So an example for me in my life was when my soul was really letting me know that I needed to leave a relationship, and my heart was not ready to let go, not ready to move on. So if you've been through a significant life change where you're finding yourself in those conflicts of emotions and in that incongruent state, then take time, be patient with yourself, allow yourself to move through whatever needs to be moved through to get to that place of congruence. That's the goal, right? Is that congruence and bringing all of those things into one flow for you. And sometimes that can take time. It's going to take different things, but starting with this clean slate is one way to get that going. And I want you to know it's okay. It's okay not to have that place of congruence right now. If you happen to be in a space where there's a lot going on, that's all right. We just work through it one bit at a time. This is like building a muscle, as I said. And this reading is the first iteration of the reading of The Science of Getting Rich. And so this is all about building the muscle, building the practice, and getting you more clear as you progress. The other thing I would encourage is whatever the medium you choose, make it a medium that is unfamiliar to you. All right. So, what do I mean by that? If you are somebody who writes a lot and considers yourself a very logical person, then I want you to get out of that brain space and I want you to enter another brain space, a brain space that is unfamiliar to you. So, drawing might be unfamiliar to you, painting might be unfamiliar to you, cutting and pasting and doing that kind of thing, even something as even something like using Play-Doh to mold this, or using something like Lego to build. These are all different strategies that utilize a different part of the brain, and what you build or what you draw can be symbolic, right? So just as an example here, I've got a picture of a cruise ship. I don't have to be drawing a cruise ship. I could just draw something that symbolizes that cruise ship, right? Or I can build something out of Lego that symbolizes that cruise ship if that was what I desired to do. So I think that I never suggest doing anything for you that I wouldn't do for myself. And I've been through these processes a number of times. In fact, I'm going through it again right now on Canva. Canva has a whiteboard feature, which allows me to pull all of this together online for myself and what that looks like for me, right? So I would definitely encourage you to give yourself a couple of hours, the afternoon off, whatever. Set it up so that you're in an environment where you're enjoying, you're relaxed, you've got some music going. Maybe you've got your favorite soft drink or whatever, cup of tea, whatever you've got going on, and you just create this space for yourself to think about what are the things that you want and get really clear on your vision. Wattles does go on to say that there's no need, and I really like this. He says there's no need to go over and over again in your mind about what it is that you want. And I have, I'm in two minds about that, because he says you do not make this impression by repeating strings of words, and I understand that. You make it by holding the vision with unshakable purpose to attain it, and with steadfast faith that you do attain it. But you've got to also take action, right? And we've been talking about that over and over again. You can't just sit there and think about it. You've got to take some action. Now, having said that, there are things that I've experienced personally that happen seemingly out of thin air. Okay, so my goal and my desire to move house was something that I thought I would initiate, not be initiated on me. And sometimes that thing comes out from left of center, and it's really remarkable. And I haven't completely figured it all out yet, and I promise to share with you when I do. But there is other actions taking place, and moving us in that direction, whatever that happens to be. And if I haven't, look, hand on heart, because I have been thinking about moving, I've actually been going through my personal possessions and getting rid of stuff and cleaning stuff and making things tidier and examining the things that I have and questioning whether it's going to stay with me or not. So do you see what I mean? But some of those actions aren't necessarily laborious or time consuming or whatever. They're just things that I'm doing that are in faith and purpose to the goal that I want. So those actions are purposeful because they're moving you towards those goals, and you're taking those actions because that's what you're seeing is the purpose behind those actions. All right. So even though I'm looking at the time, we're at 24 minutes. We've only got a little bit further to go, but I think it's worth saying here, and you've heard it even in my explanation now, that with Wattles saying that you don't need to go over and over and over in your mind what it is that you want, I'm in two minds about that. And I'm going to leave it with you to think about what you think about it. Um, Here is my perspective for what it's worth. In one instance, we are building a muscle. And if you've fallen out of practice with goal setting and you've not believing in yourself at the level that you might need to be able to facilitate some of your bigger goals, you might end up going unconscious on your goals. So it's like you set the goal and then you forgot that you set the goal, but then in forgetting that you set the goal, you're not actually even taking the action behind it. And so the purpose of your actions aren't moving you towards that goal, right? So I think that when you're first starting out and you're building out that muscle again, that it's important to keep reviewing your goals and keeping them top of mind in terms of what actions are you taking and how are you moving towards them. It might not be that you're repeating, I want this goal, I want this goal, I want this goal, I want, you're not doing that 100 times, but you're reminding yourself, okay, what was my goal here? Okay, and what are the actions I'm going to take? So if I'm in the middle of the desert, what are the road where is the road that I'm building that's going to bring that goal to me, that's going to allow that pathway in, right? So that's one way to think about it. The second thing, which might sound a bit contradictory, but just bear with me here, is the need to let go of your attachment to the outcome. So you have to act as if what you want is actually going to happen anyway, but you can't be attached to the outcome. So you're going to take the action, and I'm qualifying this as I live this material, but I'm not always convinced that you know exactly what action to take to get you towards your goal, right? But you know that there's some sort of action, and sometimes you're just going to take action moving you in one direction, and your goal, the fulfillment of your goal, is going to come in a completely different direction that you didn't even expect. So you're looking right, thinking, yeah, that's the way I'm going towards my goal. And then suddenly you get a tap on the shoulder on the left, and somebody's got the opportunity you've been working towards, and you had no idea, and it didn't even enter your consciousness that that was a possibility for coming through. Yeah. So it's big stuff, this material. I really love it. I love getting into the minutia of it all, because I'm not convinced anybody out there really has the answer, but maybe that's just me being naive. In any case, if you find yourself in either of those situations, so number one, you don't want to go unconscious on your goals and you really want to keep revisiting them, or number two, you don't want to be attached to the outcome, but you want to know what the next steps are and you're not always clear about that, then I'd invite you to go back to last week's session, because at the end of last week's session we did a visualization with the three scenes, and in those three scenes I actually took you through a process that's going to help you get clear and build that vision out as you go along. So definitely do check that out. All right, so Wattles ends chapter 8 with saying this: think and speak of all the things you have asked for in terms of actual present ownership. So not I will own, just I own. I drive. I have. I am. I am. That's a good one. Imagine an environment and a financial condition exactly as you want them, and live them all the time in that imaginary environment and financial condition. Mind, however, that you do not do this as a mere dreamer and castle builder. Hold to the faith that the imaginary is being realized, and to the purpose to realize it. Remember that it is faith and purpose in the use of the imagination which makes the difference between the scientist and the dreamer. So he really wants you to understand and be connected to that faith that you're going to have what you want, and to the purpose in terms of why you want it. In chapter 9, I'd encourage you to read that for yourself. But he goes on to really expand on chapter 8. And he says that he lays the ground rules essentially for this endeavor that you're embarking on, and what is within your control and concern and what's not in your control and your concern. So you don't want to be concerned about the news. You don't even want to watch the news, right? Like, so anything that you're looking at, observing consciously or unconsciously, is making impressions in your mind and on the formless substance. And I think through chapter 9, I think he's really asking you to be acutely aware and consciously aware of everything that's going into your conscious mind and subconscious mind, and being very mindful of those things, vigilant, alert about them, so that you control your thoughts, so that you can really be the master of your own mindset and your emotions and your results. He reminds us that the substance is friendly to you. So it is more anxious to give you what you want than you are to get it. And, I see that every day with people, every day, in those impressions when we say we want something and then we back away. Or I ask people what they want and they tell me what they don't want. Just think about that. The universe is more excited to give you what you want than you are even to get it. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? He urges us to be steady and essentially of one mind, fixed towards that faith and that purpose. In other words, a mind that's fixed on the belief that you will get what you ask for, and a mind that is fixed on the reason for wanting that goal. And again, going back into last week and thinking about that visualization exercise and how not only do you benefit from this goal and achieving it, but how do other people around you benefit? So no matter what the goal is, that there are people beyond you who get to benefit from you achieving that goal. And then how do you add that into your purpose and your values to really build the momentum and fuel the energy and the impetus for achieving that goal? One thing I want to say here, and it's not spoken about enough in terms of goal setting, is the law of gestation, right? So the law of gestation is this complementary law to the law of attraction. And it states that there is a given incubation or gestation period for each seed. So each seed, each idea that you have, all of the things that you want and you desire, each of them are going to have a different gestation period. And we don't know what that is, right? You might do what I did this week and think, yeah, I want to move. And then all of a sudden, whammo, it's happened before you even knew it was going to happen, right? I didn't know what the gestation period for that was going to be. I don't know what the gestation period is going to be for me to find a new place either. So because we don't know that, we have to build that into how we think about things. So we've got to keep continually planting seeds. We've got to keep continually taking action. There's a certain period in a specific seed which requires it to be formed. Going on to this, a certain period that a specific seed requires to be formed until it can evolve from the blueprint, i.e., the idea in your mind, to a fully realized physical shape. So, the more congruent you are, the easier this process will be. The more you can be of one mind and eliminate those thoughts of why you can't, or fear or doubt, the more congruent you're going to be. And that channel of congruence, let's think about it like a channel of congruence, is going to assist you to remove those roadblocks as you're standing there in the middle of the desert. And it's going to enable the good stuff to come in. Now, here's a little bit of spontaneity for you. There's a gentleman by the name of Michael Singer. He wrote the book, The Untethered Soul. And he does this episode on YouTube where he talks about the process of moving towards an untethered soul. And I want you to picture it like this. When you are standing in the desert and there are no roads leading between what you want and where you are. You are a tethered soul. So you're stuck. You're stuck by all of the mindsets, emotional connections that you've had in the past, in the present, all of the history of your life, right? And when you can move into becoming an untethered soul, all of those connections kind of fall away. All of those things that are keeping you constrained fall away. And so there can be more inroads and flowing in towards you. So when you look at yourself from the perspective of you being in the desert, there are multiple roads going from you to out in the world. And all of those multiple roads represent different income streams, different levels of love and abundance and connection, and all of the wonderful things that you want in your life. Now, what I love about Michael Singer is he makes it really, really simple. He says that if you are looking for those um, seeds to become fertile and to become something and lead you towards what you want, essentially, you've got to go with an open heart. And you know how that's a new challenge? That is a new challenge, because to go with an open heart in every single situation is going to require you to be fully conscious of every time you close that heart. And you will be amazed and surprised how many times it happens over how many little things in how many little situations. So if it's happening in the little things in the little situations, then how many times in the big things in the big situations do you struggle to keep that heart open? I'm going to leave you with that, because that is an experiment for you to explore and to discover for yourself. But the task is simply this: it's just to keep your heart open, keep your heart open, keep your heart open, and watch and see the effect that this has on yourself and your environment through the week. Before we close out today, I'm going to leave you with this. Use your willpower to keep your mind off the subject of poverty and to keep it fixed with faith and purpose. There's those words again, on the vision of what you want. Guys, thank you very much. We're at 37 minutes. I really appreciate you tuning in. I know that you're going to get a lot of benefit out of today's session, and I'm always so keen to hear from you and to hear how you are going in this journey. So feel free to reach out. As always, this episode was sponsored by She Leadership, and her name is. These are platforms that are very much about the empowerment of women. She Leadership turns passionate women into powerful leaders. The and her name is podcast is out to redefine leadership. I will put them in the links below if you'd like to check them out. Thank you for watching. And next week, we're going to dive into chapters 10, 11, and 12, all very big chapters again, but I know you're up for it. All right. Have a great week, and I'll speak to you then.